I am feeling great.
You are. Do tell.
Well, you already know. This is kind of staged now.
I do. I mean, but tell the people. Brag about yourself.
I just ran. I started my running routine for this year. Maybe you saw my stories. I think we're actually going to post this one next week. So this is going to be fairly recent, where I was on a walk. And all of a sudden, I felt like everyone was running. They hadn't done that, like, one day to the next. Everyone was running instead of walking.
Well, the weather was also gorgeous.
Oh my God, it was 19 degrees Celsius. And
which is what, like
February 22nd. I have no idea.
That's like almost 70 degrees, isn't it?
Yeah, it's almost summer. It's like we skipped spring. Yeah, so that got me thinking,
yeah, 66.
Do I need to start running now? It's end of February. I didn't, think about it.
It's not time yet.
It's not time yet. But, I don't know, I did. And I feel great. So that's my story.
Good for you. I didn't, and I also feel great.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
I really like your background today. You're switching it up.
Thank you. I decided to make myself really comfortable. And so I've got like a nice little cushion of pillows, and I'm sitting on the floor. I'm going to switch it up today.
I'm so excited for today's episode.
I gotta amp myself up. We're talking about my birth today. Oh, and I'm so excited. I had such a great birth, and I love it. And I want to tell the whole world about how wonderful it was. Which sounds like bragging. It's not bragging. It was just great. It was a beautiful experience.
I think there's going to be plenty people grateful for you telling this wonderful experience, so I don't think it's bragging.
Good. Yeah, I had a really lovely birth, and I want them positive birth stories out in the world.
Yep.
So that is one of the things we're doing. We're doing it today. We're starting it today. We're going to talk about everything leading up to the pooping them out.
Well, depending on how we do on time, I might cut you off earlier. But I think we'll get there today.
Yeah. As you may have gathered from previous episodes of this podcast, I do tend to go on. So
we both do that.
We both do that. That's why we decided we should talk a whole bunch for other people to listen to. Here we are. So hopefully we'll get to that point. But yeah.
Let's jump right in.
Okay. So the actual birth, when my beautiful son came out into the world, was just after midnight. It was like 12:45 a.m. on a Thursday. And so,
we're giving this to you for a time reference because Megan's going to start her story on Tuesday, and just for you to have a reference.
Yeah,
he was
so
out there
Tuesday morning, so like 30-something hours before I gave birth, is when the whole shebang got going. And it started with the grossest, well, no, not a gross part of labor, which is the mucus plug, which is what closes up your cervical opening while you're pregnant to keep all that sack of baby. I'm sorry.
You're doing great.
To keep the baby in the amniotic sac and everything in your uterus, keep it from falling out, keep stuff from leaking out. You get this hard buildup of, mucus and other things. I'm sure that medical people could tell you exactly what it is, but basically a little cork to keep you from popping. So Tuesday morning, I had something in my underwear that kind of looked like it, and I did some Googling, talked to my midwife, and she was like, well, you know, if it's a good show, we can probably expect baby within like 48 hours. Side note, can somebody tell me why we say baby and not the baby?
Oh, I
Because
never
everybody
noticed
does
that.
this, and I don't get it. Maybe it's because they're trying to humanize the infant. Instead of saying the baby, we say baby as if we're naming them.
Right.
And I can kind of get behind that, but drives me. It's very distracting. Whenever I talk to anyone, it's very distracting. But anyway, she said we can.
We're envisioning having a midwife on this podcast at some point, so let's take a note of that and ask her.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there's a like very real reason that people do that.
Yeah.
But it's flabbergasting. So anyway, we can expect baby in like 48 hours. And I was like, well, I don't know. I don't know if it's real or not. So then I went about my day, went to a chiropractor appointment. I was going to the chiropractor regularly at that point. Went to the bathroom there, and it was a whole new world in my pants. It was, I mean, skip ahead 30 seconds if you're grossed out easily, but like, it was like sticky, it was brown, it was thick, it was a lot. It was like very textbook, old blood mucus plug times. So I was like, okay, now that is a definite show right there. That is what we were looking for. And I was in the middle of my 40th week, so I was 39 and something. So well within the due period, as the Positive Birth Company calls it, but which is like 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after. That's when you're basically on time, before and after your due date. So, you know, it's perfectly okay for baby to come. See, I even do it now because it's just how you do it, for the baby to come. But my schedule was not ready for the baby to come. I had people coming the next day to stay with us for like a week before the baby came to help us get ready. So I was like, well, you know, some people lose their mucus plug and they don't give birth for a week. So who knows? Maybe that'll be me and we're good to go.
You chose to be in denial a little bit.
I chose to be chill about it.
Okay.
We'll call it chill.
Let's call it that.
We'll call it chill. But I did start getting some contractions that night. So, and actually that afternoon, but they were much lighter and more like period cramps. But that night...
Can I make another note in here?
Yeah.
Which was also a relevant sign, actually, because you hadn't had, up to that point, any practice contractions.
Yeah,
No
that's true.
Hicks,
I hadn't
right?
had any Braxton Hicks or practice contractions. Oh, and I'll also say, in hypnobirthing, there's a lot of word substitution to help people who have negative associations with words like contraction and words like mucus plug. And I just don't have those associations. Like, I don't feel negatively about contraction, so I'm going to use the word contraction. I may occasionally use the word surge, because that's a word that hypnobirthing uses. And that's how I did my birth prep. Go check out our hypnobirthing episode. I love hypnobirthing. But yeah, heads up to anyone from the hypnobirthing world. I am going to be using the word contraction. So yeah, I hadn't had any practice ones. And that night I turned to Hunter and I was like, hey, I'm glad I know what a contraction feels like now. Because I had no idea. A friend of mine had them literally throughout her pregnancy. She was having contractions from like 15 weeks in.
Oh my.
Yeah. So that started Tuesday night. I timed them. They were still pretty far apart, 10 to 15 minutes. They were also, though, pretty long. Like, they were 45 seconds from the get. I only had a few contractions that were less than 45 seconds long, which is 45 seconds to a minute is one of the benchmarks for seeing how far along you are in labor. It's part of the something I'll get to later. We'll get there. So, yeah, Tuesday night I got a few hours of sleep, but I was up timing contractions for a good amount of the night. Luckily, Hunter was able to sleep through it, and I wasn't too stressed out for that to be, like, I was fine with that. I was reading and timing contractions and basically just chilling out. And by like early morning, I was falling asleep. So that was fine. Got up the next morning and they were still happening. I had a big breakfast. We took a walk and
You worked?
I did. I worked frantically. I was planning to go long. Like, I'm a first-time mom. My mom went really long with her babies. So I was thinking, like, I'm thinking about trying to avoid induction. I'm thinking about natural meat, like quote unquote natural ways to induce labor. Basically non-Pitocin ways as far as possible. So I was like, I'm expecting this baby in August, basically. So I was not prepared to leave work. And I was not prepared. I was just not prepared. So I was working a lot to try to get things off of my plate, out of my hands, so that I could leave work, because at this point I was pretty sure that things were happening, and if it wasn't that day, it was going to be the next one. So I did a lot of work. I called and talked to Hannah. We actually have a picture of that we will post on Instagram.
Oh yeah.
When this one goes up.
Right.
And she was very cute. And I was very clearly 39 weeks pregnant.
Yep.
And it was the middle of summer. So Hunter and I went on a walk at some point that day. He decided to stay home from work because, again, we were pretty certain that this was the real McCoy. And both of us had to pee really bad on our way home. And needing to pee really bad and having contractions is not a good combination.
Sounds like my worst nightmare.
It was bad. It was bad. So I was like walking hunched over for most of it and really slowly. And Hunter really had to pee too. So he was like booking it home. He was like, I'm not leaving you. And I was like, go. You get there first. I'm coming. Don't worry. Leave me. It was great. It was very dramatic. So yeah, we both made it. There were no accidents in the street. Although at that point, like, it would have been fine. So throughout this day, I was in touch with my sister, who was the one who was coming to stay with us. And I mean, you all know what 2020 entailed. So I had not seen my sister all year, and she had not seen me pregnant. And that was really sad for me. So I was like, so she basically decided Wednesday morning that she was coming regardless of what was happening. And so she and her husband got in the car and headed to us on their 8.5-hour drive to get to us. Which, so by the time they were getting there, I was contracting pretty regularly. So throughout the day, I was just contracting. I was able to take a nap. Hunter and I actually took a nap together listening to a hypnobirthing script. It was gorgeous. We laid on the couch and did a hypnobirthing script and just chilled out, took a nap for an hour. That was perfect. So I was still very much in early labor throughout this whole thing, right? And at this point I was also thinking this could slow down, because it turns out I had a very linear birth where things started, then they got closer together, and then they kept getting closer together, and then they got really close together and I gave birth. But that is not how a lot of births go. A lot of births, you get the contractions get pretty close together and then they sort of slow down and you're just sort of chilling out for a while, and it just wasn't my experience of birth. Yeah, so they made it and I was a wreck. At that point, my contractions got more intense if I stood up or moved, or basically if I moved, I started contracting. And I think that's another thing that happens in early labor. You're still in early labor if when you move around, it changes how your labor is working. So either it slows it down or it speeds it up or it makes you contract or whatever. And once you get into the point where it's regular regardless of what you're doing, then I think you're in more active labor. Could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. So they got there, or here I should say, and we started talking about all the plans for all the stuff I wanted to do. It was a beautiful fantasy. We sat back in this room because this is what we were planning on being the baby's room. We've got him in our room and it's not a thing, but we were gonna clean it up and organize and do all put pictures on the wall, and I had plans. I had beautiful plans. You're so cute. None of them happened. Although I think they did something. And I don't even remember what it was, but it was so sweet and wonderful, and I loved it. So they were here for a couple of hours. I think it was around 7:00. I had been sitting on my big exercise birth ball thing, and I had stopped timing contractions earlier in the day because they were just really doing the same. They weren't getting closer together, they weren't getting further apart, they were just sort of doing it. So I stopped timing them. So at this point it seemed like they were getting more intense and closer together, so I had started timing them again. And they were getting closer together. They were around every 8 minutes at this point. And so I was sitting on the birth ball and I felt a contraction coming on, and it was a pretty strong one. And so I ended up leaning forward and rolling off the birth ball and going on the floor on all fours, in a crawling, on all fours basically. And then I felt my pants fill. I was wearing a pad, because different things can happen during labor that will soil your underwear. You can bleed a little bit, you can lose your amniotic fluid. And that's what happened to me. So my water started breaking, and I have this beautiful rug that we had put in this room and that we had just gotten in like a couple weeks before, and I was like, I am not getting my water on this rug. And so I could feel my pad like filling up. It was a big pad. It was like one of those super pads. And I was like, oh my God, my water's breaking. So I got up and I went to the bathroom.
Priorities, man.
Yeah, you can do things you didn't think you could do during contraction when you're concerned about your pretty rug. So I went to the bathroom and lost some more water, or I should say expressed, whatever you want to call it, in the bathroom, and then changed my underwear, put on a new pad, and then I was like, okay, so my water broke, and my sister was like, okay, so are you leaving now? Are you ready to go? And I'm like, no. And because that's what you think, right? Like, that's what they show in all the movies. Your water breaks and you're like, gotta get to the hospital.
Taxi!
To the car! And that's just not how it is. Like, you can have your water break and not have anything happen for 12 to 24 hours. And I know there's some, like, medical ACOG guideline for an ACOG, I think. I'm not going to tell you what ACOG means, but it's obstetricians and gynecologists. It's their governing board in the US. And they have guidelines for like how long you're supposed to leave someone who's not quote unquote progressing. That word is a thing. In labor after their water breaks. But that's like at least 12 hours. So at that point I was like, no, like this is real now, and we're gonna like because it wasn't real before. I think that is the point when I surrendered and was like, okay, I guess this can happen. I guess it's happening, and it's just gonna happen now, and that's okay. And we're gonna let it happen. So at this point, Hunter was out mowing the lawn because he knew that things were happening and he didn't want anyone else to have to mow the lawn for us. And it was the summer, so he didn't know when we'd get to mow it next. So he was like, gotta go mow the lawn. So he was out mowing the lawn. And while my sister was asking, like, do we need to get ready to go? Like, is it time? And she was also like, do we need to get Hunter in here? Like, should I go out and tell him? And I was like, nah, just let him keep mowing the lawn. Tell him when he comes back in. It'll make him a little nervous, but like, there's no rush. So just let him finish the lawn. Tell him when he comes back. So, she and I, my sister and I'm so grateful that they were here for all of this. Because if it had just been Hunter and I, it would have been a much more stressful situation. Like, we could have called my doula and she would have come and helped us with all of this. But it was so wonderful to have my sister there and have somebody who I was completely comfortable with to like do this thing with. So that was awesome. So she laid in bed with me and helped me time my surges, and we listened to another hypnobirthing thing. And at this point I could tell they were speeding up because I knew how long the hypnobirthing script was, and I knew that they were no longer around 8 to 10 minutes. I knew that they were coming a lot more often than that. And I was right. It turns out they were coming about every 4 minutes at this point. 4 to 5. And so that was a little bit concerning because I live an hour and 20 minutes away from the birth center that I was going to. And I realized later that we had never clarified when I should come in. We had only clarified when I should tell them the first time that I was in labor. And that was at 10 minutes, is when they wanted to know that I was going into labor. When I was contractions every 10 minutes, lasting a minute for a whole hour. And I had been there like Wednesday morning. So I had been talking to my midwife on and off throughout the day. And all of the signals she was giving me were like, it's gonna be a while. Eat some food, make sure you're getting some sustenance, rest, do your hypnobirthing, like hang out, be nice to yourself, but like there's no hurry, nothing to worry about. We'll probably see you Thursday morning. She was being optimistic. Because turns out she had also delivered 4 babies, and I was the 5th baby of that week, and she was the only midwife on call that week. So I think she had a little bit of like, please, crossing my fingers that you give birth when the other person picks up on Thursday morning. So.
And they also say that first-time moms, it's longer,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I could have been all throughout this whole thing, I could have slowed down at any point. And she also said, so after about 45 minutes after my water broke, we were timing contraction. They were coming every 4 minutes. So I was like, well, this is pretty close to every 3 minutes, and that's when people nearby go in.
Mm-hmm.
So like maybe I should be going in now. And so we called her up and she's like, no, I mean, sometimes things speed up after your water breaks, and then they slow down again. So keep timing. Once you get to 311, give me a call. Mm-hmm. And this was the first I'd heard of me going in at 311. I mean, she had told me sort of jokingly, like, you could start pushing and still get here on time, which again turned out to not be true. But she was like, we don't want that, but you could, like, you're okay.
All right.
So yeah, that was the only part of my birth that was frustrating to me. I did feel like she wasn't believing me, or she wasn't hearing me, and she wasn't taking me seriously.
Mm-hmm. And you had told me that you have a theory that also has something to do with hypnobirthing.
Yeah, I do. So I think it has to do with a couple things. My midwife was incredible. I effing love her. The minute that I talked to her when we were considering transferring our care to her, I was just like, yes, 100%. This is the person that I want taking care of me. The one thing that bugs me about her is her professional voice. Which is entirely a me thing, right? Like, this has nothing to do with her. This is entirely a me thing. But I find it really hard. Uh-oh. My baby started crying. So, I gave her a call. And like I said, I really love my midwife. She's fucking awesome. and she was really tired. And so I don't know if it was because of that. I don't know if this is just like how she conducts her business. But every time I called, and I'd called her 4 or 5 times, so she might have been annoyed with me generally, she would say, well, I don't want to say all of the things about her, but like she would say, "Hi, this is blah 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 speaking. How can I help you?" And like it was such a trigger for me, and I don't know why, but her like chipper professional voice made me feel my reaction to that was like, she's not taking me seriously. She's not talking to me like a person right now. And like that, none of that was true. She was taking me seriously. She was talking to me like a person. But because she had that tone of voice, and I was in such a like intense place in my brain, like I didn't have any bandwidth to do any self-reflection on my reaction to other people, right? Like I didn't have any bandwidth to do any interpreting of my reaction to other people. I was just reacting. So she answered the phone with that voice. And then I started telling her about where my contractions were and how I was feeling, and she started responding, and her words were, "Now remember, in early labor," and I turned off. I don't remember if she kept talking after that point. I don't remember. Because at this point I was having intense contractions close together, and I'd been having them for 2 hours, and my water had broken. And you can still be in early labor at that point. But through whatever knowledge and intuition I had in my body, I knew that I wasn't. That I was in active labor. And just hearing her say that and already having the emotional reaction to the way that she sounded, I was just like, no. And I actually started contracting at that point. And so I knew that I wouldn't be able to concentrate on what she was saying. And I also didn't want to talk to her anymore. So I was like, I'm starting to contract. I can't talk to Hunter. And so I handed the phone over to Hunter, and he talked to her. And basically he told me afterward that she had said, you guys can come in now, but it's probably early still. Stick with it. And if you decide to stay home, plan on coming in when you get to 311. And so Hunter told me that, and again, my emotional reaction to people, I was like, well, I don't want people to think I'm stupid. I don't want her to be annoyed that I came in. And none of this needs to be a consideration. Because if you want to go in and you will feel safer going in, you should go in. And I should have gone in at this point, and I would have felt safer, and I would have been able to labor with more support for longer. But ultimately, I also don't know if that would be true, because maybe I would have felt uncertain, and maybe I would have felt uncomfortable, and maybe I would have felt judged, and all of those things might have held me up, might have made it a less lovely experience, might have made it not as gorgeous and beautiful as it ended up being. So I don't know, but this is what happened. So we stayed home. I was like, well, if I'm not gonna labor in the tub at the birth center, well, not that I wouldn't, but if I'm not going into labor in the tub at the birth center, let's run a bath. So we ran a bath. Hunter went in there with me and hung out, helped me time contractions. And then I started to get really uncomfortable in the bath. And I since around this time is when I started not wanting to lay down or sit down at all. Like, I wanted to be on my feet all the time, no matter what. Anytime I sat down or laid down, I got really uncomfortable. And I haven't looked it up. I don't know if that's some sort of sign of where you are, but I think also just generally people are comfortable in different positions depending on their body and where the baby is. And anyhow, so then I wanted to get out of the bath, and I really had to poop. So again, I'm in active labor at this point. So I got up and I was sitting on the toilet, and I turned to Hunter because he's still in the bathroom with me, and I was like, "I'm sorry, I'm pooping in front of you." Meanwhile, he's about to watch me give birth, so like, but it seemed important to say something at the time, because it's not something we generally do in front of each other. So he was like, "It's fine, it's okay." And this is around the time when I was starting to get a lot more, they call it labor land, right? I was starting to be a lot more in my head and a lot more, like, I had my eyes closed a lot. I was just very focused on my body and interacting with the surges, basically actively not interacting with the surges, so like breathing and relaxing my body while the contraction was building, and then while it was going down, because that's kind of how they work, right? So it builds up and it gets more intense, and then at some point it starts letting off. That's why they call it surges, or they call it waves, because that's kind of how it acts. It builds up and then it tapers off. So I was really focused on all of that. I got out of the bath. We went back into the bedroom.
This is my favorite part.
Okay, good. I was wondering if I should skip it, but I won't.
No.
So, a month or so earlier, when we had started to really think like, okay, birth is gonna happen soon, so let's figure out that situation. Hunter had asked our midwife, like, what would you say is a sign that, like, we know this is real, like, this is real labor? And she said, well, I would say, like, if she doesn't care if she's not wearing pants. And Hunter and I looked at each other and laughed. And then turned to the paper, like, we're gonna need another sign. Because I don't wear pants very often. Just generally speaking, this is something I got from Hannah. When we lived together, she never wore pants.
And it made Megan uncomfortable at first.
It did.
I remember.
I forgot about that.
You coming up to me, asking to talk to me, and telling me that it made you very uncomfortable when I don't wear pants around you, and asked me if I could wear pants.
Really?
Around you. Yes.
I don't remember this at all.
I am very sure, because I was like, I was shocked. I didn't know how to process that. I was very like, I don't understand how it could make you uncomfortable, me not wearing clothes. And I was a very self-centered teenager. I mean, I was 18, but I was a teenager. So I was
We're
like,
all self-centered. Don't worry about it.
I don't care. You figure that out. I'm not wearing pants. It's my house. Like, why? I'm not outside. Why should I wear pants? And
wow, I don't remember that at all.
Then I guess you did at some point get comfortable with it, because then you stopped wearing pants. And then
that's so funny.
You went to college and lived with 5 other girls and had that situation with them, and then no one was wearing pants anymore.
Yeah, half of them stopped wearing pants too. Not all of
And
them,
I was very proud
but
that
a
I
significant
started
number of
trend.
them. Yeah, that's hilarious. So, yeah, no, I don't wear pants very often, and that was the sign that she said would mean that I was in labor. And I was like, well, then I'm in labor now. So, but after I got out of the bath and went into the bedroom, we had kind of gotten to the point, we were close to every 3 minutes for an hour. So I think we were like right around then, and it might have even been even more because the app that I have gives you an average over time. And so I think I had started the hour a little above 3 minutes, and I ended the hour somewhere in the 2 to 3 minute range. So things were happening. It was happening. It was almost time to go. So Hunter wanted to go and get the car packed and get everything ready. So he sent my sister in to, be with me and help me. And she and I change in front of each other. Like, she's seen me naked before, but we don't usually like hang out naked together, right? And so she walked in and I was just naked, and I could not have cared less. It just did not matter to me at all. It was the last thing on my mind. But I did think about what the midwife had said. And so I was like, I think this is what she meant by not caring if you're wearing pants. It's just like full on naked, hanging out with my sister. Sorry, I need a snack. Pause for a word from our sponsors. We don't have any sponsors.
Oh, how great would that be? Well, Megan has a snack. We're gonna pause.
We'll get there.
Sponsor. If you want to sponsor us.
Yeah. Do be in touch. Okay. So, yeah. So, in the meantime, my sister and her husband had cooked us dinner. And so Hunter got the coolers all packed with all of my labor snacks to get me through the long haul of labor.
Which you ate none of, right?
I ate none of... What? No, yeah, I ate none of them. I think I might have taken... No, I don't think I ate any of them. I might have had one earlier in the day. Like, I might have had a smoothie at some point in the day.
No, but like after leaving the house, no. There was no snacking to be had.
No. So, oh, and at some point in this whole shebang, somewhere between when I talked with the midwife and when we decided it was time to go, I had thrown up. Which again is another active labor thing, I think. And I had eaten a whole bunch of trail mix earlier because I was like, oh, this sounds tasty and I'm enjoying it. And I should be eating right now. So I'm going to keep eating this. So I ate a bunch of trail mix. That came back up. And so that was before we got in the car. And I had asked Hunter to get the car ready and like put down the back seat so I could lay down and like chill out and have a nice cozy like den space in the car to labor in while we drove, because I was anticipating being in labor when we went. And so he did that, and I got in the car and I went to lay down, and remember, I didn't want to lay down or sit down even at all at this point. But I was like, well, he did this and I'd asked for it and maybe it'll be nice. And I got in. He closed the door behind me. And I was literally like, let me out, let me out, let me out. Like, I got so claustrophobic and I got so uncomfortable and I just needed to get out. So I went and I got out on the other. I actually went in one door and went out the other. And I was like, nope, gotta put the seat up. I'm sorry if you just saw the coconut come out of my mouth. I just spit coconut when I was talking. It's really cute. So yeah, I got out on the other side of the car and they were like, well, shit, what do we do? I was wearing clothes at this point, by the way. I did put on clothes. Out in the driveway. So, no, I didn't put them on in the driveway. I was wearing them while we were in the driveway.
Okay. I just had an image of you walking out the house naked and your assistant behind you, Megan.
Nope, put them on before I left the house.
Okay.
Oh, and I was the thing that I put on was actually freaking amazing. It was from Latched Mama. So it was a nursing outfit. It's like a romper dress thing. Loved it. We'll link it because that thing is amazing. And they have a bunch of different patterns. I haven't loved it as much nursing, but I loved wearing it during my pregnancy. Look, it was fine. And it was great for labor. So yeah, then we reset up the car, or they reset up the car. I was not involved. They reset up the car. I got in, I had my puke bag, I had some water. I had my maternity pillow, which was also the best thing I've ever purchased in my life. And we got on the road, and that was rough. That car ride was a lot. And I was just super concentrated on trying to find any position in which I would be halfway comfortable. During my contractions, in between I was okay. I could just sort of sit, and I think I even laid down a little bit. That didn't last very long. I think I threw up after I did that. I only threw up twice. I won't be talking about that anymore. Oh no, I will mention it later though. So anyway, we were in the car. I remember closing my eyes for the majority of it. I opened them a couple of times to try to see where we were, because I had absolutely no sense of time. I had no sense of time at that point. We could have been driving for 5 minutes. We could have been driving for 3 hours. Like, I had no idea. I was entirely focused on keeping my body okay, relaxing my abdominal muscles when I had contractions, finding some way to put pressure against my back while that was happening, which I managed with the maternity pillow. That was very nice. And Hunter was so wonderful. He was so wonderful. He was like, "You're doing great. I love you." And like, when we were pretty close, I think we were like 20-30 minutes away, we drove over this bridge that showed you the skyline of the city where our birth center is. And he was like, "Megan, look at the skyline. You can see it. It's all lit up." And in my head, I was like, I am not looking at the skyline. I am busy. You are interrupting me. But then, like, some I'm glad you like that.
Excuse me. I don't think you understand what I'm doing here. Look at this skyline.
No, I wasn't that bad about it. Calm down.
Oh, I know. Okay.
But some miracle of a little voice in my head was like, "You should look. You'll probably be glad you did." And so I opened my eyes and I looked, and it was gorgeous. And it was like such a beautiful little snippet of a moment in that car ride that I otherwise did not enjoy. And I think about it every time I go over that bridge now. And I've been over it several times because we went for postpartum appointments and, just go into town sometimes. So So yeah, it was really sweet. And he also was keeping me apprised of how long we had to go. So he would be like, okay, only 30 minutes left. We've got 20 minutes left, Megan, you can do it. We've got 5 minutes left, 10 minutes left, 5 minutes left, you can do it. And it was so perfect because, again, I had no sense of time. So like having these benchmarks of like, oh, the number keeps getting lower. Must be a good thing. And I think by the time we were like 5 or 10 minutes away, I was literally pulling myself up on the emergency safety bar, clenching the entire like back, shoulders, and arms of my body, so that I could relax around my uterus and like, so that I could relax through contractions. And the contractions were long, so my arms were very sore the next day. But they weren't the only thing that was sore, so it was okay. So yeah, that we got there, and I was like, I was getting close to transition. It must have been because I was like, what was I thinking? I can't believe I decided to do this without any pain medication. Like, take me to a hospital. Like, what am I doing here? What was I thinking? And that's a pretty common thing that happens around transition.
Yeah.
And so knowing that, I could at least like have a conversation with myself in my head instead of like spiraling into panic. So it was really good that I knew that was a thing. Because I was managing pretty well. Like I had coping strategies. I had a plan. I had support. The car ride was really tough, but after I got there, it was just like, this is why I wanted to be here.
Oh.
Because we walked in and the room was beautiful and they had the lights down low and my doula was there. We had called them before. We left the house and told them, you know, like, come on down, we'll see you there. And so I walked in and I was talking to them and I was like, I have puke, can I throw it away? And they were like, yeah, of course. In my head, I wasn't sure if I could throw away like bio waste in just any old trash can. So that's why I was asking, but I didn't clarify that because I was not in a state to clarify. So they were great. They put my hair up. We walked around the room. I started making noise at this point. They checked me. Oh God, I forgot. My favorite part. Again, so every time I had talked to my midwife up to this point, she had said something along the lines of like, it's probably going to be a while. So like strap in. We're going to be doing this for like 12 hours. And she'd been saying that for a long time. So really in my head, I should have been like, okay, 12 minus, we're okay. 12 minus the amount of time that we've been talking. But she was like, you know, it could be a good long while. So like, prepare yourself for that, basically. And she had told me before, most of the reason for transfer, which is when the birth center sends you to a hospital for first-time moms, is due to exhaustion. Because you haven't experienced this before. And it's just like going to a new place, right? It feels like it takes forever to go to a new place because you've not been there before. And then when you're driving back, it feels a lot shorter because you've already driven that road before. And so I think it's similar to that.
Oh my God, that analogy. Wow.
Have you never thought about that before?
No, it's amazing.
I think about that all the time. How it always feels so much shorter to drive home from somewhere than it does to drive.
Oh yeah, no,
to
totally.
A new place.
I've thought about that. I know exactly what you mean, which is why I thought that was a great analogy to the first birth.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and when we were getting there, and I was like thinking that she was gonna say we still have another 12 hours to go. It's like, well, yeah, people transfer from this. Like, I can't do this for another 12 hours. Meanwhile, my contractions were like a minute on, a minute off. Like, it was go time. But I, you know, that's not the input I was getting. So, and I trusted her over me because I've never done this before, and she's done thousands of births, right? She wasn't in the room with me, so, you know, I'm sure she would have had a different assessment if we had been in the room together, but she was going off averages and her experience of those thousands of births before, which are usually longer than this. My birth wasn't extremely fast, but it was pretty quick. It was like 5 or 6 hours from my water breaking to baby coming. Baby. The baby?
Yeah, I noticed. I didn't want to say anything.
Since we're talking about this context, it just keeps happening that way because that's how people talk about it. Anyway. Yeah. So we got there. I walked into the room. There was another midwife assisting her who was like new to the practice, but not new to midwifery. She'd been a midwife for a while. So I walked in, said, "Hi, my name's such and so," and I was like, "Hi, I'm Megan." Very impressed that I introduced myself at that point. And I walk over, I start having a contraction, I lean on the bed. She comes over and puts counter pressure on my lower back, and she goes, "Ooh, that sacrum's popping out. We're gonna have a baby soon." And I was like, hallelujah, hallelujah.
You are the favorite person in my life right now.
I could have kissed her. It was amazing. I was like, oh, thank God. And my whole body just like,
oh, yay,
relaxed in relief. And it was such a big, like, I'm feeling it now. I'm like, oh, thank God. It was such a big deal to hear that. And then they asked me if they could check me. So they checked my blood pressure, and then they checked my cervix. And I was at 7 centimeters, so I wasn't all the way dilated yet. But I was like, I will take 7 centimeters. At this point, I would have been really heartbroken if I had been like at 3 or 4, you know, which could have been the case, but I'm really grateful it wasn't. So yeah, then the midwives actually left the room, and my doula and Hunter and I were laboring in there, and I started to make noises. I started singing through my contractions, which was actually quite helpful. And I will say, so in my hypnobirthing course, and I think in some of the hypnobirthing stuff, they talk about having a pain-free labor, about labor not being painful. And I wouldn't say that, my labor anyway, I wouldn't say it wasn't painful, but I will say that it was a different kind of pain. It was a different kind of feeling than like if I was hurt. It was like having muscle cramps, which is exactly what it is, right? But it was like having a muscle cramp, which is really uncomfortable. It was like having a Charlie horse in my abdomen. It's really uncomfortable, and it can be really painful, but it's not like breaking your leg. It's not like getting a cut. It's really hard to explain. It does feel, yeah, it feels like muscle cramps. But knowing that it's for a reason, knowing what the purpose of this whole shebang is, knowing that this is a productive feeling, does really turn the experience around, right? Because you want to keep having contractions. You want them to keep getting more intense. You want all of this to build, to keep building. Cognitively, you want it. Sometimes in the heat of the moment, you'd wish it would just calm down a second. But, and I have heard people like use visualization and totally leave the experience of their like body and their contractions and be somewhere else, which is very cool and not something that I was able to integrate into my hypnobirthing practice. But sounds incredible. It was cool to be in the room too, though. It was cool to be there, and I was kind of foggy. I feel like I'm losing my thread of forward motion, but that's pretty applicable for this moment in my story.
What do you remember? Sorry, keep going.
No.
You said you were losing your thread, so I was trying to. What do you remember from after you were told we're having a baby soon? That's kind of where you.
Oh, then I just went in. Then I was just at work. Like, I was doing it. It was happening. And I was walking around the room. I was trying to find something at the right height to lean on. Because the bed was a little too low. The sink would have been great. I only used the sink like once or twice. And I don't know, I guess because that little corner of the room wasn't as cute. It's where the toilet was, and you know. The rest of the room was much prettier. But yeah, the tub was too low. The bed was too low. There was a dresser that might have worked, but that's where the midwives had like their laptop and stuff set up, so I didn't want to mess with that. Yeah. It was just very much breathing, walking, drinking water when I needed to. It was, so I had some nerves around laboring with other people around, and like whether or not I would be able to say what I need, whether or not I would feel, empowered to tell someone what I needed or ask for something. That was not an issue.
Oh, good.
No, I mean, like I said, I had no bandwidth for analyzing any of my thoughts about other people or reaction to other people. Like, I just said, like, water. Oh, in the car ride, I forgot about this, but we want to have Hunter tell his version of this story too.
So badly.
Because he probably has a lot more of a cohesive insight about what happened. Since he was not in labor. But in the car ride, I kept getting hot or getting cold. And I would literally say, cold, hot, window. And then I would be like, do you want it open or do you want it closed? And then I had to like think for a minute and like, open. Then he opened it and I was like, no. So I had no problem telling people what I needed. So at one point, I think I mentioned it already, I had my doula put my hair up. And I was like, can someone put my hair up? And something happened. And she tried to hand the hair tie to Hunter. And I was like, he doesn't know how to do it. Can you do it? It's just like... Yeah, there was no filter. And that was okay. I felt very aware of what was happening around me, but I don't think I was reacting to what was happening around me as if I were in the room. Mm-hmm. Like, I knew I knew that other people were talking. I knew what they were saying. I was processing what that meant, but I wasn't reacting to it unless it immediately concerned me, which I think is an appropriate level of interaction at that point, but it's just such a strange place to be because it's not where I usually am. I'm usually very much feeling the room and reacting in all different kinds of ways. And again, very normal. So I did that. We labored. I walked around. I demanded water, pressure, and etc. for about 45 minutes. At some point, they started filling the tub. I got in the tub. I knelt down. The water hit my belly, and I was like, no! And I stood back up. And so then I just like stood in the water for a little bit. And I was like, oh no, if I really wanted to give birth in the tub. I hope that this doesn't mean that I don't like it at all the entire time. And I waited a little while, and then I tried again, and it felt really good. So then I stayed there. I don't think I would have wanted to use the tub up to that point, though, because I didn't want to be in any position other than standing for so long. So that was interesting. And about 45 minutes in, at the birth center, I said, I'm starting to push. So my doula went and got the midwives. And they came in, and I started pushing, or my body started pushing. I was, watching, cheering it on, breathing it through. And that was it was very intense. It felt better than the contractions right before then, though. The contractions right before I started to push, like pushing was a relief at that point. And I've heard other people say that as well. But pushing felt really good at that point. So I started doing that, and my midwives were great. Like, they weren't telling me what to do, but they had helpful insights. Like, I was making a lot of noise at this point, and like groaning through my contractions. And when the only instruction my midwife gave me for most of this part was like, try to keep it in a lower register, try to keep it down low, because, and it totally made sense when she said that, because anytime it was getting high was because I was starting to feel pain. And this is like the kind of pain where you cut yourself, right? Like, this was like ring of fire pain, which is something that people talk about a lot, which is around your vulva. You start feeling the stretching, and it's stretching more quickly than your skin can handle. And so then it starts to burn. So, right. But when I would when my noises were lower, I was pushing less. And so if I could have avoided pushing at all, which I couldn't at that point, but if I could have like relaxed more, I wouldn't have felt any ring of fire pain, I don't think. And I'll be interested to see how my next labor goes. Could be entirely different, but if it's similar, I wonder if I'll be more able to do more. I don't know. I'm intrigued. But so that was awesome. And then at some point we could feel the head. She reached in and felt it, and then I was like, I want to feel, so I reached in and felt it. It was very goopy. He had a lot of hair. He had a lot of hair. And then at some point, she said, okay, with the next one, you can really lean into it, and I think we can birth the head. And what I didn't know at this point was that the umbilical cord was over his head like this, which can actually be kind of a serious complication.
Like this, for those that are not watching the video.
Oh, right. Was over his head, like up his face, over the top of his head, and around and down the back. So it was coming out with his head. And that can be a pretty serious complication. So I think I could have kept pushing longer and had the head come out slower. But obviously you don't want to compress the cord for any longer than is necessary, because that cuts off oxygen to the baby. So the cord being in there with his head, you know, you want to get the head out so that the cord has room to continue delivering blood and oxygen to the baby.
And had she felt that, and that's how she?
I think she did. Yeah. She obviously didn't say anything to me about it, and I'm grateful for that, because I trusted her, and so when she said push him out with this next one, I was able to, and it, I did tear a little bit, but I didn't need to know at that point. I did not need to know. So his head came out, and that was crazy. Like, I could feel his head, and Hunter was like, I can see his face. Well, we didn't know it was a boy, but I can see the face. I can see its ears. Like, it has ears, and I can see its face. Like, it was so cute to hear him being so amazed at the, like, features on the head of this baby. It was so cute. And I actually have a picture where you can see his face, and it's crazy. Like, a picture of me giving birth, because at some point I had said, like, can someone get my phone and take a picture when he's born? And so one of the assistant midwife had gotten my phone and was taking pictures as the baby was being born, which was amazing. I'm so glad I have those. I may be able to post one. I know I'm talking about them, and I might not post one. Sorry. I'm pretty naked, so I don't know.
Instagram might also not like that. But
yeah, I wonder.
Yeah.
All of the important bits are covered. Doesn't matter. So anyway, that was very cool. And then the midwife said to Hunter, like, if you watch, you can see it turn. And so the face turned, obviously, so when the baby comes out, they're facing, are they facing the back or the side?
They're facing the back with the nose to your bum.
Okay. So the baby comes out, ideally, with their face to your back. And then after the head is born, the body turns to be born the rest of the way. So in between,
the shoulders can go through, right?
So the shoulders are then front to back.
Yeah.
Again, if we're wrong about the details here, let us know. But either way, after the head is born, the baby turns, which is incredible. Just
I know.
period.
Like, how do they know how to do that? That's nature.
It's incredible.
Yeah. Can you check your recording real quick, please?
Mm-hmm. I'm still recording.
Oh my god,
that's amazing.
So great.
Gorgeous. So then the midwife said, okay, with the next one more big push and we'll birth the body. And so I did. And as he was coming out, I heard this enormous crack. And in my head, it was like the loudest crack I've ever heard, and nobody else remembers it.
Oh.
So I don't know if it was his rib cage. I don't know if it was something in my pelvis. I have no idea. I don't know if it was something in my back that just like cracked itself out. I have no idea. But I heard this enormous crack pop sound and I was like, oh my God, is he okay? Am I okay? Are we okay? And Hunter and the midwife grabbed the baby out of the water and they pulled him up and they put him on my chest, and Hunter got in the water with me and we all just sat there and like hugged each other and said hello. And it was so sweet. And so many people talk about this like magical moment, and all of a sudden I love this baby more than I've ever loved anything in the world. And that wasn't my experience. I think I was still like in labor land. I was tired, and I'm amazed by the people that have that moment. And I felt a little bit like, oh no, am I supposed to be feeling that way? But it was beautiful. And he was so cute. And his little arm was dislocated, I think, which might have been the crack. But the midwife rubbed it and like moved it around, and that was okay. And so yeah. Then our little bean was out in the world. Oh, and Hunter was like, hey, did anyone notice what if this baby's a boy or a girl? And instead of actually answering, the midwife lifted up his leg and like flashed his mitts at us, and I couldn't see because of my like angle. But Hunter started laughing, and I was like, wait, no, like what? Really, no. What's down there? Hunter goes, I guess it's a boy then. That was pretty cute. Yeah, we actually have a picture of that moment, which I may be able to post part of at least. So that'll be cute.
That's funny.
Yeah. And I think that's where we're going to cut off today, right? Because I feel like
Yeah.
we've been going for quite some time.
Yeah, I just checked. We're almost at 1.5 hours. It will be a little less because we took that break, but
That's right.
I think this is a good time.
Yeah.
And then we'll
Welcome
hear
to the
about
world,
rest
tiny
next
baby.
time.
And then we'll talk about the rest of the night, because that was just before 1 a.m. And all the stuff that we did at the birth center, and then taking him home, and all of that. Embarking on a journey with a whole human that we had to take care of.
This is your new job now, and you can never quit.
Well, you can. It's just very traumatic.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a great note.
Cool on that note. But it was a really...
I don't know how to end this.
No, I'll just say it was a really incredible experience. And I think so much went into the positivity of this experience for me. Part of that being that my body was healthy enough to do it. The baby's body was healthy enough to do it. I had really well-informed support around me, including my partner and birth partner, my doula, and both of the midwives that were there. I felt so safe. I felt very heard. I felt very empowered. And all of that, coupled with just, the luck of the way the baby was positioned and all of the other things that sometimes do go wrong, that didn't for me. And I'm so, so grateful that not only was it smooth and relatively uneventful from a medical standpoint. It was also like enjoyable. I really enjoyed that Wednesday, even though I was working frantically. I enjoyed spending time with Hunter. I enjoyed spending time with my sister and her husband. I enjoyed all the hypnobirthing I was able to do during that day. Yeah, I just feel really, really lucky, really blessed to have had such a positive, peaceful, and powerful experience. See how I did all the P's there? I'm pretty impressed with that.
That is the perfect way to end this episode. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. Tell us about your births.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'll talk to you again next week.
Yeah.
With the rest of this.
With that little bean coming on home with us. Yeah. And how he didn't poop on my chest. So 10 out of 10.
What that is about, you'll hear next week. Okay.
Talk to you later.